Hello, fantasy sports fans, and welcome to MFSN's MLB Waiver Wire Fantasy Show. It's week 5 here. We thank you for spending some of your Thursday afternoon with us. I will be your host today, Casey Scheinvold. Dan is away taking care of many of his other responsibilities right now, but I'm joined, as always, by the one and only Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody, I'm Ross the Boss. I'm going to talk MLB Waiver Wire with you, cowboy. Let me tell you something, Case. This is like the first time I think the planets are aligned where the Angels, Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees are all in first place. I mean, it's unbelievable. All these big market teams are all in first place, spend huge money, and obviously it's worth it because they're all doing great. Even the Angels, who I thought would falter in May, they're not faltering at all. They're winning.
I know, and they're impressive. I hope they stay healthy. I think that's going to be the big issue for them, obviously. If they stay healthy and Syndergaard can keep pitching with Alcantara and some of the other guys they got.
Sandoval,
Sandoval, that's what I meant. I apologize. Yeah, okay. They have the chance to remain. Houston's been scuffling. I think it would be exciting to see Shohei and Mike Trout in the playoffs together. So,
well, Houston did win 6 in a row, so I'm not going to talk bad about them, but they're right behind them.
Yeah,
but we got the Dodgers, we got your Yankees that are playing probably the best ball in the American League.
22-8.
I mean, they're pitching, they're hitting. I mean, they're playing like a team. They're a well-oiled machine. And I feel right now they're the favorites in the American League. If I had to pick a team, I'll pick the Yanks. How about that?
I can't say I agree because I'm too superstitious for that. But I'm hopeful that you're right because with Chicago hurting the way they are and some of the other teams in the AL aren't really living up to their billing, I think the Yankees have a chance, but they got to stay consistent. So, but let's move on to what everybody's here to listen to. Let's give them some waiver wire picks for this week that we think can help their fantasy baseball team. Just to go over the rules a little bit, we refer to the Yahoo rankings. We're only naming players who are owned 60% or below. We're going to go through our top 4 picks that we each think out of any position, and then we'll go position by position and give you a few other names. So, Ross, why don't you start off and give me your top 4 fantasy baseball players for this week?
My top 4 picks for the week. Now, if these guys are not picked up already, you should definitely try to pick them up if you can. I mean, as much as I want to say this guy's going to falter, every week I'm saying, okay, he's not going to keep it up. Josh Naylor of the Guardians. I didn't mix it up, Casey Scheinfold. I said Guardians.
Nicely done.
Like that? You thought I was going to mess up. I bet the money was on me messing up. I'm not messing up. So Josh Naylor, hitting 347, 5 home runs for the year. I'm waiting for him to start dropping off. He's not dropping off. I mean, the Guardians are scoring a lot of runs. I'm sure Dr. Dan Ratner's dancing at his house how well they're doing offensively. Their pitching's horrible. But their hitting's doing really well. Naylor's leading them off. I mean, he's doing great. Brandon Drury of my Cincinnati Reds, who are all of a sudden they snapped out of their losing streak. They beat the Milwaukee 2 out of 3 games. He scored 14 runs the other day against Milwaukee. He's hitting like 298 with 3 home runs. He's like a guy that was on the waiver wires a couple years ago. I mean, he's been mixed. He's been on different teams the past couple of years, but he found a home in Cincinnati. He's killing the ball. This other guy, Alec Thomas of Arizona, he's one of these young kids, 22 years old. He's in the Major League Baseball. He's only been in the league for about 4 or 5 days. He's 5 for 13. He hit a home run yesterday, Casey Scheinfold. It was like 400 feet. I mean, I watched it. It was unbelievable. But this guy's for real. He has power. He had a great minor league career. He's in the major leagues now. He's going to play every day. Alec Thomas, pick him up now. And my last one, I hate this team, is St. Louis Cardinals. Juan Yepez. Every time he plays, he starts every game ever since he's been in Major League Baseball. He's hitting kind of low, 444 he's hitting. It's not too
Was that
bad.
it?
Yeah, that's it. With 2 home runs. He's played about 2 weeks in Major League Baseball. He's the real deal. I mean, this guy is the future for St. Louis. They're forced to start him. You can't sit this guy. And I don't know if he's available in your league, but he is under 60% still, barely. I suggest you pick him up.
Yeah, those are some great names. Alec Thomas, you're right, is a big prospect. got called up. He's a top 30 MLB prospect. He's supposed to be a power speed guy. I love that pickup. If you can get him, get him. I like Brandon Drury too. So some of your top four were in my top four. So I'm going to name four different ones. My first one is going to be Adley Rutschman. Catcher is notoriously difficult to find fantasy relevance in. I just read earlier today that Adley Rutschman might be up in the next couple weeks. He's still only 50% owned in Yahoo leagues. This is a kid who has power and hit. So if you can get him now, and he can be a big difference maker for you going down the stretch. Another guy is our cover boy today is Colton Wong, the second baseman for Milwaukee. Second base is not the deepest position. This guy in the last 2 weeks is batting .325 with 4 stolen bases, and he's got 9 runs scored. Milwaukee, their offense is starting to click. Christian Yelich is coming alive. You got Willie Adames, Rowdy Tellez. Urias is a good little hitter. That's an offense that can produce. And if he's getting on base at over 300, at almost a 400 on base percentage clip, he's going to score a lot of runs and he can run. So he's number 2 for me. Number 3, I'm hoping he gets healthy soon, is Manuel Margot. This guy, they're calling him Margot ahead because he keeps hitting go ahead home runs. In the past 2 weeks, 421, 3 home runs, 13 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, the number 2 overall producer in fantasy, and he's still only 58% owned, which I think is crazy. And then the last guy I'm going to name is, I wanted to say Josh Naylor because I think that's a great pickup. I'm going to go with Tommy Pham of your Cincinnati Reds. He's been hot for like 3 weeks and it hasn't slowed down. Batting .300, scoring runs, knocking in runs. He's getting on base. He's got power. He's got speed. So that's somebody in the outfield who can help you in almost every position, in almost every category. I'm sorry. Is there anybody else you'd want to name before we go position by position?
No, I want people to watch the show. There's more names, but I'm not going to mention them until we go through each position.
Fair enough.
All my names out now. What are you, insane?
I like that you like to build the suspense. Hopefully, I wish we had like a commercial break because then you could do that teaser coming up. Okay, let's start at first base. Why don't you tell me 2 or 3 names at first base outside of Josh Naylor, because you already gave us his name, that you think are good ads or value for the position right now?
So I'm going to turn back the clock on this pick. 2020, he led the American League in home runs. Luke Voit. He played for your Yankees.
Yep.
Great hitter. Horrible start. I mean, he's been hurt. He just got off the DL. He just got off a couple days ago. He's hitting like under 200. He's doing horribly, but I think he can turn it around. And if he can start hitting like he did a couple of years ago, which he showed he's healthy now, he's going to have a huge year in San Diego. So Luke Voit, pick him up. If he doesn't produce, drop him in 2 weeks. Fine. But stash him, see what he does. Just trust me. Maybe he'll be what he was 2 years ago. We'll see what happens. But Luke Voit, Josh Naylor, of course, I mentioned him. He plays first base. I already mentioned his stats. Jordan Laplow of the Arizona Diamondbacks plays outfield too. Yep. He's been hitting over 300. Well, he's hitting 286, but in the past couple of weeks he's hitting over 300. He has power. He can steal bases. He plays a lot. I like him. He's one of these young guys that I think you should pick up. Just get another stash, or even play him. And another guy I mentioned last week, Jesus Aguilar, for the Miami Marlins. He's the past 2 weeks he's hitting .327 with 2 home runs. And again, he plays in Miami. No one watches Miami Marlins in person or on TV. So if you pick him up, you're probably not going to watch him play, but doesn't matter. He's going to produce in that stadium. People hit home runs out of it. And Jesus or Jesus, whatever you want to call him, he, for me, is at one of those top tier right now. It could be a top tier first baseman, especially for the years to come.
Yeah, and I think you pointed out something that I think is important to reiterate here, and that's that we're talking about players who are hot right now that you can pick up without the expectation that you have to keep them throughout the year. When we're talking about waiver wires, sure, you might find gold and find somebody you can put on your roster, like an Adley Rutschman, who can contribute for 6 months, for the rest of the year, and if it's a keeper league, for years to come. But more often than not, we're looking for the guys who can help us right now near the bottom of our roster. And if they then falter a little bit, there's no shame in dropping them. The Luke Voits of the world, that was a good name to throw out there. I'm going to give you a couple more. Darren Ruff, right now in San Francisco, is hitting over 300 the past couple weeks. He's getting pretty regular playing time. He qualifies at both first base and outfield. He can give you some pop. He hits near the middle of the lineup, not in the middle. I think he hits 6. So he can give you, he's in some run producing positions there. San Francisco is, of course, a very complete team. As much as I perennially underrate them, much like I do the Tampa Bay Rays, they just seem to know how to win without stars. And Darren Ruff is one of those players who knows how to contribute. So he's somebody you can pick up. And this guy, I'm going to name him, although the last couple of weeks haven't been as good for him, and that's Sheldon Neuse. It's spelled weird, Neuse, but it's actually pronounced Noisy. He qualifies at first, second, and third base. He's batting .275. He's scoring runs. He actually has a home run and an RBI and a stolen base, in the last couple of weeks. If you can get stolen bases at first base, that's an advantage for your team too. So those are 2 other first base names that I would consider adding if I was in a situation where I needed an extra first baseman or somebody on my roster that I can plug and play when the matchup is right and when my starting first baseman might be getting the day off. Anybody I missed?
I think we're good. Noisy, I just want to remind the audience, he plays for your Oakland A's.
He does.
Who actually, I don't think I can name, if you can name the starting outfield for the Oakland A's, I'll give you $1.
Oh my, yeah, that's impressive. That would be hard to do. I don't think I can.
That'd be tough. I mean, they trade. I mean, their whole team is rebuilding. But yes, Noisy I like a lot too, just because of the utility card he plays. As I mentioned before, it's good to get players that can play all different positions, just in case you have that one player that's going to be out for 10 days. You can fill them in at utility. I mean, there's a million things you can do with these high utility players, and it's important to have them at least one on your roster.
Yep. All right, let's move to second base then. Who are your top second baseman adds this week?
So second base, Cesar Hernandez of Washington. The past 2 weeks, Case, he's been hitting .346 with a stolen base. Not too bad.
Yeah.
I like the guys that are hitting for average because I feel that's a category that a lot of people don't pay attention to. And the league average right now is like .232 for hitting right now. It's just really low. So if you get a guy hitting like .346, that really pumps up your average, and that can win you the week, or you can lose you the week. But I mean, Cesar Hernandez is getting on base, and again, he can steal bases too. And the other one that you mentioned is Brandon Drury. He plays third base, outfield, second base, and past 2 weeks he's hitting .298 and 3 home runs. So he's been on fire, and I like him as a streaker. I don't think I'll keep this up. I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah, that's going to be hard for him to do.
I mean, in the past, he's always been like one of these guys that hits .260 and probably has like 10 to 15 home runs. But who knows? In Cincinnati, that great American ballpark where they play, I mean, balls fly out of there. I mean, it's a very easy place to hit home runs. Very friendly for hitters. So maybe it's going to revitalize him playing in Cincinnati. We'll see what happens.
We have our first comment of the day from Chris Atwater. It says, "Hey, Ross the boss. I watched the Marlins the other night since I have Luzardo rostered. Fantastic performance he had. 2 2/3 innings, 78 pitches, 4 runs. That was pretty strong. Apparently he had a case of the walks. How many walks was there in that, Chris? Do you remember? It had to be a bunch to throw 78 pitches in less than 3 innings.
I have to commend Chris Atwater, big SEC guy. For you to watch the Marlins play at home and you have nothing else to do except watch the Marlins play baseball, I suggest you find some other things to watch. Or maybe get up and do something, because I don't think I can sit down and watch, at least I can probably watch 1 inning of the Marlins and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Although if I owned Luzardo, I would be more interested in watching. I think that's because I do have him in one of my leagues. If I saw him on, I would probably want to see what he's been doing. Although that would really scare me off. I might end up trading him pretty quick after that performance. So, Chris, if you still have him rostered, mazel tov to you for keeping him. Okay, some other second basemen. I think Brendan Rodgers, he plays second and short in Colorado. Again, we're big fans of Colorado batters. He's batting .313 over the last 2 weeks. He's got 8 RBIs and a home run. He's somebody who can be useful, and he qualifies at both.
Just remember, he's hurt. So
yeah, he's not on the. They say he's day to day.
Yeah, he's going to be on. He's going to be out for a few games. He is.
He has a minor hand injury as well.
Yeah, he has tightness or something. But they're going to sit him. But doesn't matter. He's a good pickup.
And then Colton Wong, who I already mentioned, obviously I talked about how useful he could be. And then here's somebody who I'm picking him because he plays all over the field and he's getting pretty steady at bats in Texas. And that's Brad Miller. First base, second base, third base, and outfield. Those are those guys that you can use all over the place. In the last 2 weeks, 2 home runs and 2 stolen bases. So, second base is pretty thin on the waiver wire, although there are some other guys, but they qualify at other positions where I think they're more valuable, namely shortstop or third base. So Brandon Drury is a great pickup, but he's an even stronger pickup if you can plug him at third because third base is so thin. Give me a couple shortstops.
Andres Gimenez, in the past 2 weeks, he's hitting 357 with 2 home runs. And Lurie Garcia, he qualifies just not at shortstop or second base and third base and outfield. He qualifies in 4 positions, Casey Scheinfeld, which is almost a record in Yahoo. But in the past 2 weeks, he's hitting 310 with 2 home runs. He's starting to heat up. Again, he's another guy that's day-to-day, but he should be back at least by this weekend. The great thing about Garcia, again, is he's heating up. Could be a streaker. Doesn't matter, but he's utility. So even if you stash him, he can come in and fill in for somebody. If somebody's hurt or somebody's not playing that day, this guy can fill in and play.
Yep, he's very good. Another guy, I'll name the prospect again, is O'Neal Cruz. I know we've talked about him before. He is starting to hit really well in Pittsburgh in the minor leagues. They're saying he's just bored down there waiting and that he could be up any day now. Since he's already been up, it's not an issue of them trying to hold his service time clock back because he played last year for them. I have a feeling he could be up pretty soon, and he's one of those guys who's a dynamic offensive player. So he's at, where is he owned? 27%. So I would pick him up if I had room at the bottom of my roster to stash him, or if I had an NA slot. Some rosters, some leagues have an NA slot, so you can stash a minor leaguer or 2. If you do, O'Neal Cruz and Adley Rutschman are probably the 2 best batters to stash in that area right now. Anybody else at shortstop that you can think of?
I think we're good.
All right. Third base then. Let's move on.
So you guys been dancing and singing about Nolan Gorman for the St. Louis Cardinals, this minor league prospect. I think he's 22 years old. Let me just remind the audience, this guy hit 298 and 12 home runs this year in the minor leagues. This year,
already.
Not last year. This year.
Already, yeah.
So they're bringing this guy up, and he's going to be playing every day. I don't know where. He'll be playing, I guess, maybe at.
They're talking about playing him at second base. Although
I think second base, yeah.
They just sent DeYoung down to the minor leagues because he was batting like he was an interstate something.
Yeah. So
there's a chance he could play some in the middle of the infield.
I think Gorman's going to play. They're going to have to play him every day if they're bringing him up. He's not going to be sitting on the bench not playing with that bat. So I like Gorman a lot. He's been picked up in a lot of leagues. So if you can get him now, pick him up. At least stash him or start him, whatever you want to do. Mike Moustakas of the Cincinnati Reds the past 2 weeks hitting 350, Casey Scheinfeld.
Yep.
6 RBIs. He's starting to heat up. Always been a good hitter. Always been good. And again, let me just tell you guys that Great American Ballpark is a great place to play if you're a hitter. Horrible place if you're a pitcher. Ask Hunter Green. Horrible. Colin Moran is another Cincinnati Red. He plays first base and third base. He has 4 home runs and 14 RBIs in the past 2 weeks. 14 RBIs.
Yeah.
That's an RBI every day, Casey Scheinfeld. And then somebody else who just was activated, hasn't played all year. And he plays for the White Sox with that unbelievable lineup is Yon Machado.
Moncada.
They just brought him back. If he's up to what everybody's saying he is, he can easily be an all-star. He's that good.
Yeah, I'm not sure what his ownership level is, but I agree with you. If it's less than 60%.
It's under 60. But he just came back, so a lot of people don't even know he's back. And if he's available in your league, you may want to pick up and see what he does in the next couple of weeks.
Those are some good choices. I'm going to name another guy who's just activated off the IL and hasn't made his debut yet, or he may have yesterday or today, and that's Evan Longoria in San Francisco. He gets hurt a lot, but when he's been playing for San Francisco, he's been hitting.
Unbelievable.
And he's coming back. So he'd be a smart one to pick up if you could. We talked about a lot of these guys already because they qualify at multiple positions. But Jace Peterson in Milwaukee, when he gets a chance to play, he qualifies at first, second, third, and outfield. So he gets all around the field. He's hitting 320 with 3 stolen bases, 2 home runs, 8 runs scored in the last 2 weeks. So when he gets a chance to play, now he was part of that 14-11 game against the Reds yesterday. I don't know if playing the Reds inflates your stats for a few days. It seems like it might, but he's a good one to look at. You mentioned Mike Moustakas. We mentioned Sheldon Noisy. How about Jose Miranda? The guy's been struggling. I know I'm kind of a Miranda apologist, so I will put my bias out there for everybody to use at their own judgment. But this guy's a huge prospect who just tore the cover off the ball in the minor leagues. He's got a really long leash right now in Minnesota. He's not doing well now, but with Sano being hurt and Sano being Sano, there's no guarantee that Miguel Sano has the job back if Miranda figures it out before he comes back. And so he's somebody I would add and at least put at the end of my bench as well for third base. Catchers. We talked about Adley Rutschman already. I have him as one of my top pickups just because of the chance. There's another DL guy who I'm a big fan of, and that's Danny Jansen. He was hitting really well for Toronto before he got hurt with his oblique. He's finishing up a minor league rehab assignment right now. He's going to be coming back. I have a feeling he's going to take some of Alejandro Kirk's at bats when he comes back. So he's somebody to watch for. And then one other guy is Francisco Mejia. He hasn't been hitting well in the last couple weeks, but this is a guy who's a hitter. He was hitting really well before he got COVID. So maybe it's just taking him a couple days or a week or so to come back from that. He's another catcher who you can target that can probably, I don't want to say help you. How about not hurt you? I find when I'm looking at the catcher position, I'm more looking at who is going to not hurt my fantasy stats more so than who is going to help. I think there's only a handful of catchers who ever help your fantasy stats. What do you think, Ross?
I agree. I mean, the catcher position, for some reason this year, there's only like a select few that are hitting like over their weight. I mean, a lot of them are hitting under 200. And like you said, you just want to get somebody who won't hurt your team. One that won't hurt your team right now is William Contreras of the Atlanta Braves. He plays every other day. They might have him at DH, but in the past 2 weeks, he's hitting 333 with 3 home runs with only 12 at bats, which means he has four hits and 3 of them were home runs, which isn't too bad. They're going to have to find this guy more playing time. I mean, this guy's been killing the ball, and I believe the Braves will find a place for him. Another guy I like, and I know he's not hitting right now, but I think he'll heat up, is Jacob Stallings of the Miami Marlins. He is a 6'5", 6'6", big kid, young. He's going to have a good year. Let him. April was a disaster for him. He's getting a little better in May. He has 6 RBIs in the past 2 weeks. He's hitting 222. He's getting better. But I like Jacob Stallings. It could be worth if you have a weak position at catcher and you need a catcher that I think is going to improve drastically. Jacob Stallings is one guy. And my last catcher, just because last year he had a really good year hitting, is Tucker Barnhart. Past 2 weeks, he's hitting 286, which is way above the league average. And Tucker's just getting better every week. So Tucker Barnhart could be a good pickup too.
Okay. Now we have a couple comments. First is from Christopher Atwater. Do you like Santiago Espinal in Toronto? Second base, third baseman. In the last 2 weeks, he's batting .267 with a couple home runs, 3 stolen bases, 14 RBIs. So he's putting up some good stats. No, we didn't mention him yet, Chris, and that's probably an oversight by us because looking at those statistics.
I mentioned him last week. I mean, yeah. He was hitting a little better last week, but yeah, I mean, we like him, but there's just better players out there.
My biggest concern about him is when Cavan Biggio comes back, are they going to start taking the playing time away from Espinal? I don't think I was never a big Cavan Biggio fan, but the name, when you're Craig Biggio's son, maybe that gets you some extra airtime or some extra playing time.
They also have Guerrero, and they have Dante Bichette's son too, right?
Yeah, they have the all legacy team.
They have like the all legacy team over there in Toronto. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So, and then JP asks, is it time to drop Tyler McGill in New York, the pitcher for the Mets?
Seen some good quality starts beginning of the year. And
yeah,
just depends who's available in waiver wire. I would not drop him quite yet. So I would let's see what he does his next start. I like him. I just feel he's been shaky the past few starts, but the Mets are a good team. They're in first place, and it's hard for me to drop a pitcher when their team's in first place. That's my
I mean, he had one really bad start where he gave up 8 earned runs. I think he got lit up, gave up a couple home runs. I wouldn't panic yet on McGill. I might not put him in my starting lineup the next time he pitches, but once he shows me that he's got his control back, because I think he lost his control, I think he's going to be fine. The Mets are a strong team. There's good defense there too. So I wouldn't panic yet. JP just said he's waiting on Flaherty. I think we're all waiting on John.
Me too.
Flaherty for the last couple of years.
I mean, the good news about Flaherty is I have my contacts in St. Louis. They said he pitched 2 innings of simulated baseball and he had no pain. So hopefully he'll be back soon.
Yeah, I mean, if you have to drop somebody when Flaherty comes off the IL and McGill is your weakest pitcher, then maybe you do it. But before I would do that, I would probably try to do a 2-for-1 trade where you open up a roster spot, maybe upgrade somewhere else by trading McGill and that position player for a better position player, because I still think McGill is decent. I mean, Flaherty is of course an ace when he's healthy, but with his shoulder issues the past couple of years, how safe do you feel with him? I mean, it's just, man. I hope he comes back and is the Jack Flaherty of old, because 3 years ago, he was a stud. All right, why don't we move on to some pitchers? Do you want to do starters or relievers first?
We got outfielders real quick.
Oh, we got to do outfielders. You're right. Good call.
So really quick with outfielders, I mentioned a lot of them were on top of the show. Alec Thomas, Juan Yepez, Josh Naylor plays outfield. The only other one I like, plays for Pittsburgh. I know you're saying, Ross, I really don't want any Pirates, is Ben Gamel. Ben is hit the past 2 weeks, 364 with 7 RBIs, and he's hitting like 290 for the year. The league average is 230. So I don't see Ben Gamel like dying down. I think he's going to have a strong year. He's just going to help your team offensively. Don't be scared because he plays in Pittsburgh. But Ben Gamel to me is a good pickup right now.
Yeah, I like.
And he's only owned like 3% of the leagues. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, I think he's up to 8% because of how he's been the last couple of weeks, but it's still ridiculously underowned. I also mentioned Manuel Margot, obviously, earlier. I like Harrison Bader. He's only 42% owned. In the last 2 weeks, he has 7 stolen bases and 17 runs scored. He's not bad. 242 is still above league average in batting average too. So this is a guy who, if you can get him, he can help. I mean, 7 steals is the difference of like 7 points or 8 points in rotisserie with how rare steals are. And he's scoring runs. St. Louis is a good team. That offense is always going to produce. And then there's also Yadiel Hernandez, the young kid out of Washington. He's batting 346 in the last 2 weeks. He's got a stolen base, a couple home runs, 15 RBIs. Those are some pretty solid numbers. And he's floating out there in 40% of Yahoo leagues. So that's somebody else I would target. I like Austin Hayes. He's day-to-day right now with a laceration, a cut on his left hand. I don't know how bad it is. So I don't know how long he's going to be out. But before he got hurt, he was batting over 300. He 12 runs scored, 3 home runs, 12 RBIs, all in the last couple of weeks. So he's somebody who was a top prospect. So he's got the history of being productive and being talented. If you can get him and he comes back, great. If not, if he goes on the IL, you can either put him in your IL spot or drop him if you don't have an IL spot available. But there's some decent outfielders out there that you can grab right now. Ross, may I now move to pitchers? Is it okay?
Yes, sir. You can go to pitchers.
All right.
Outfielders is going to be quick anyway. I just don't want to skip outfielders. That's all. So with starting pitchers, I'm going to start with the 22-year-old who pitched the no-hitter for the Angels a couple nights ago. He's the first pitcher ever to throw a no-hitter with an ERA over 6. Broke history. 22 years old. Unbelievable, hopes for this kid. I mean, in the minor leagues, he was almost unhittable. Start of the year, very rocky. I know, rookies get nervous. They throw the wrong pitch and they get paid. They get paid for it. But his ERA is down to 3.77. It's Reed Detmers of the Angels. Yep. I think Reed is is one of these young stud pitchers, and the Angels are playing so well. I mean, their offense is playing so well. I mean, I think it's the Angels or Toronto with the best lineup right now in Major League Baseball. They both have really good hitters, and they're young and they're hungry. And I talked about last week. I talked about Brandon Marsh. I talked about Tyler Ward. They sent Joe Adele down recently because they have so much talent. But that Angel team's young, and Reed Detmers is one of their young studs, so I like him a lot. Yeah. Martin Perez, who I never would ever think in a million years I would say this name. Martin Perez of Texas. His ERA is like 2.10 for the year. He's like unhittable. I mean, he's pitching great in Texas. I don't know. He has 4 great quality starts, 4 in a row. That's really good for Martin Perez. So if you want a streaker, Martin Perez could be a streaker for you. His next start, you should pick him up if he's available. And then another young stud, Baltimore, we all laugh at Baltimore. I was laughing. You were laughing last year. And we were just saying they have no talent like coming up. Who's in the minors? Well, they have a lot of young pitchers. They have Bruce Zimmerman, and they have Kyle Bradish, who I think you should pick up. He had a great start against St. Louis the other day. He pitched 7 innings, 2 earned runs, 11 Ks. This kid's the real deal. He throws really hard, really, really hard. He throws smoke. His breaking stuff breaks. So Kyle Bradish right now, I feel, is one of these young gun guys that you may want to pick up. So those are my top pickups and pitchers. I'm picking guys that are not really well known, which I like. So I'm curious to see who you like to hear.
Well, before we get to that, JP has another question for us. He wants to take us back to the outfield. He asked if any of the ones we mentioned are better than Jesus Sanchez of the Miami Marlins. Jesus Sanchez, of course, is the young kid prospect who came up. He's mired in, I think, a horrible slump the past couple weeks, has a lot of talent. So, that's a difficult question to answer because better than or performing better than are 2 very different things. I think Sanchez is as talented as any of those.
Alec Thomas, pick up Alec Thomas.
Right, but the way he's playing right now, if you can get Alec Thomas, I would take him. I think Tommy Pham right now is doing better. I'm blanking on who's the St. Louis outfielder that you just mentioned. Yepez is hitting better.
I think is a young stud. I think Josh Naylor qualifies as an outfielder. I like him better.
If you need speed, I would get Harrison Bader right now and ride that. Of course, if this is a keeper league, I might prefer to keep Sanchez for the long-term value. But if it's a redraft league, I don't know. It might be time to cut bait. You can always pick him up later if he gets hot again.
But the answer is yes. Any of the guys we mentioned, JP, I would pick up and drop Jesus, 100%.
I'm not 100% like he is. Ross is very confident and certain in his opinions, and it's been very successful for him. So I'm not being critical of that. I tend to play more of the cautious role of, I think they're doing better than him right now, with the goal I could use my free agent acquisition budget to pick him up later if he gets hot again. So that's what I would tell you to do. Christopher Atwater, is George Kirby for real? He's 62% rostered, so outside of the rules, but just want our opinion. I think he's for real. I mean, the guy's got nasty stuff. If you watched the highlights of his start last week, and he's been a top prospect all the way through his minor leagues. So I think, I mean, for real, do I think he's going to be a fantasy ace this year? No, but if he's a good 2 or 3 or 3 or 4, and you can get him for the tail end of your starting pitchers, I think it's definitely worth it and a good pickup.
I agree. Kirby's a first-round draft pick, young, huge prospect. I'm glad he's coming to his own. I like him a lot. I think he's somebody that you should try to roster if you have the room.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll name a couple other starters. I wasn't blown away by any of the starters. I liked Reed Detmers. He was obviously my top pickup because the kid threw a no-hitter. Good for him. Great. Martin Perez is pitching awesome, but I've watched him pitch for years, and I've never understood the appeal long-term for him because I've just seen him give up too many big innings or big home runs. Yeah. I'm going to say Christian Javier because this might be the last week we can say him. He's at 59%. I know we've been kind of blowing the horn for him for the past few weeks. In the last 2 weeks, 21 innings pitched, 2 wins, 25 strikeouts, 0.83 ERA, 0.78 WHIP. I mean, he's just delivering. I don't think he's going anywhere. He was good last year. He's good
and he also qualifies as our relief pitcher too.
Right.
I mean, he might come in during a game and pitch 3 or 4 innings. So don't be blown away if he's not starting. Doesn't matter. He'll still get his innings, like you said. 21 innings in 2 weeks is great.
Yeah. Josh Winder, this kid from Minnesota, who I wasn't even familiar with before the season started. So full disclosure there. Last 2 weeks, 22 innings, 20 strikeouts, 2 wins, 1.61 ERA, 0.72 WHIP. Minnesota is surprising a lot of people in that AL Central. They might have some staying power when you put up Joe Ryan and this kid and some of the other starters they're throwing out there with that offense with Correa and Buxton and, Polanco, Max Kepler, Alex Kirilloff. They have some names. So who knows? That's somebody I would consider. And then Josiah Gray was one of the big names that the Washington Nationals got in the Max Scherzer, Trey Turner deal last year with the Los Angeles Dodgers, this young top prospect pitcher. The last couple weeks, let's see, what are his stats? They're pretty impressive.
No, he strikes out. I mean, he came up with the Dodgers. I remember him with the Dodgers, and I saw him play spring training a couple years in a row, and he was great.
He's got a couple wins, a 2.38 ERA, only
how many strikeouts, Case?
He hasn't struck out much in the last 2 weeks, only 6 in 11 innings, but he's got 20 strikeouts in 22 innings, so he's almost a K per inning pitcher. So I really like him as well as somebody you can put on that roster. There's a bunch of those swing pitchers like Michael King for the Yankees qualifies at starter and relief pitcher, but I think of him more as a relief pitcher, but he's another guy, 7 innings pitched in the past 2 weeks, 9 strikeouts, only a 0.71 WHIP. He's been doing it all year long. Name a couple relievers that you like, Ross.
So Brooks Riley of Tampa Bay. I know he's 33 years old. I know he throws the ball probably in the mid 80s, very soft. He played many years in Korea. I mean, that's where he's famous. But he has 3 saves in the past 2 weeks, 1.8 ERA. If he wants saves, I mean, this guy has been getting saves. I can't explain it, but he knows how to pitch, and he knows he has great stuff. Another guy I like is Emilio Pagan of I believe he pitches from Minnesota. His ERA, Casey, 0.00, my grade point average. In the past 2 weeks, his ERA has been 0.00 with 2 saves. So even if he loses that job as a save, which he might, we'll see what happens. But he'll still come in the bullpen, and he'll still get innings. He'll still get strikeouts. And another guy I mentioned, just because you're a Yankee, is Clay Holmes. In the past 2 weeks, he has 3 wins, 0.0 ERA. Clay Holmes has been money for the Yankees.
He's that big sinker baller. He comes in whenever and he gets a double play almost every time. The Yankees have been winning,
so he comes in the 8th inning, tied game. Guess who gets the win?
He's Clay a poacher, Holmes. Yeah. So here's a question. Do you think Danny Jimenez has taken over the closing job in Oakland?
I think Lee Trevino, I just said that on purpose just to make you correct me. Lee Trevino, who's used to be the closer, it's not Lee Trevino, but I think Danny has the job. I think he's the closer. I mean, he throws in the high 90s, very, very great. He's a great pitcher. I mean, he has unbelievable stuff. So yes, the answer is I believe he's the closer still.
I believe he's at least he's shortened Trevino's leash if Trevino ever gets another shot at it because he's doing so well. Now, who's to say Danny Jimenez in a couple of weeks won't have a few blowups and lose it again? But until then, I think he's proven that he's reliable enough. I'm going to name a few other relievers real quick before we take off. JP Fireeisen in Tampa Bay in the last 2 weeks has 3 wins. He's one of those ones who comes in, pitches a couple innings, striking out a 0.00 ERA and got 3 wins.
My GPA in college. Yep. Keep going.
Okay. We're going to call that the Ross. That's fine. There's also Ryan Helsley, this kid in St. Louis, 3 innings, 8 strikeouts, a Ross ERA and a Ross WHIP. I want to point out.
Wow. WHIP means he hasn't given up like a base runner. That's unbelievable.
Right. 1 win and 1 save during that time. 3.2. He's striking out more than 2 batters per
he's not even the closer. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, I know. And well, that's because what's his face is doing well.
Gallegos.
Yeah, not Giolito. Now you got me saying names wrong.
Thanks.
But all right, one more question, and then we're going to wrap up. Who are some guys that you think are going to turn it around a la Ketel Marte? Perhaps Bellinger or Story or other guys. Who should we not be giving up on?
So that's a good question. I always give up on players. Like if a player's not doing well, I'll waive them. Even especially in a redraft league. In a keeper league, I won't do that. But I feel that Trevor Story, the only way he can go is up. I mean, he just had his first home run this week for the year. I think Trevor Story is a good example. I think Cody Bellinger is going to have a bounce back year. Christian Yelich hit for the cycle. I know he started out kind of slow. I think Christian's going to have a good year, especially in Milwaukee during the summer. I mean, there's a lot of players. I mean, there's Perez, the catcher for Kansas City.
Yeah, I wouldn't give up on Salvador Perez yet.
I mean, again, he'll hit 260 and have 35 home runs. I mean, a lot of players have started out slow this year, and I admit it. I mean, but on the big names, I will not give up on the big names. I may bench them, but I'm not going to waive them. I'm not going to do something stupid like some people do. But, there's some mediocre people that, I mean, if some of these mediocre players are not hitting up the expectations, I have no feelings for them. I'll waive them immediately. But the superstars, don't give up on them. Trevor Story is going to have a good year. He's just starting slow in Boston. Give the kid a few more at bats.
I worry a little more about Story than you do because I think when batters change leagues from the National League to the American League, they tend to struggle in that first year. I agree long-term next year and the following years, he might bounce back, but I'm a little more worried about him. Whit Merrifield is somebody who I would buy low on right now.
Oh, Whit hit his first home run.
On the season, he's only batting 161.
Yeah.
He's ranked 734. That's somebody, because of his second base and outfield eligibility, I would buy on him if I could. Marcus Semien, I'm not sure what to make of what he's done so far. 165 and no home runs for Texas.
And how many home runs? He had like 40 home runs last year.
He was a monster for a couple years in a row. Yeah. So that's somebody I'm a little worried about because I don't know what's going on. And I don't like that Chris Bryant is already on the IL because this is a guy with notorious health issues and back issues. And he has 0 home runs and 0 stolen bases on the year. And the one thing that made him really valuable was he was a power speed guy. So those are some names I would be more worried about. Ketel Marte's had a couple bad years in a row, and he's not doing great right now. I would hold on to him just because of the speed potential. But again, that's somebody I worry about.
I have an idea for next show. We'll do this for JP. We're going to have our top 10 stars that are starting off really bad that you should hold on to. How about we'll have a list.
I like it. That's a teaser for next week.
Yeah, we'll have a list of players that started really bad this year that you should not drop. And then I'll have another list of players that started really bad that you should drop. We'll have 2 separate lists. How about that?
I like it. All right, Ross. Well, thank you. That was an awesome show. I appreciate all of your knowledge as always. And to you viewers out there, thank you for tuning in. If you like what you saw, please click the like for us, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to our channel. I love the comments. Keep them coming. We love interacting with you guys. Every week, every Thursday, we'll be here at 4:45 Eastern, 1:45 Pacific, bringing you the best information we can about fantasy baseball. I hope you all have a good night and a successful week ahead in fantasy sports.
Kill Cliff Octane, new flavor, Laser Lemon, plus 125 milligrams of clean caffeine, no sugar,
25 milligrams of CBD.
Meow available at Kill Cliff.